Witcher 3 is a truly masterpiece of a game. It continues on a long line of proficiency that CD Projekt Red has had with its entire Witcher series. Witcher 3 is a very rich and engaging story that pulls the player into a deep and complex world with immersion through truly next-gen graphics and top-class storytelling.
Pirouette. Wrong. Footwork. Enough. Get down.
With a flip?
What do you think? All right. Take off the blindfold. You've got work to do. Your reflexes are still slow.
Maybe for a witcher.
The Witcher 3 follows the story of Geralt of Rivia, a witcher, or otherwise known as a mutated monster hunter. Witchers who carry two swords, a silver for monsters and a steel for everything else, are contract monster killers that use their mutations to slow down their heartbeat, see with more precision, take very toxic potions, and use magic signs to dispel beasts with ease. With these abilities, Geralt of Rivia is on a quest to find Ciri, his ward or adopted daughter, who he knows is being pursued by the Wild Hunt. The Wild Hunt is a grim omen to all who feel its cold chill of its presence, as they will stop at nothing to obtain the godly powers that Cirilla holds. As this power, as told in the prophecies, can halt a catastrophic destruction that no being can stop but her. The Witcher 3 has a very strong cast of characters voiced expertly by various voice actors. On the basis of these voices, the characters come to life with emotion, from happiness and glee to immense and terrible sorrow. Characters you meet along the journey help develop an engulfing world that includes real life and supernatural problems.
In
real life, you're different than you were in the tapestry.
Characters like the Bloody Baron show the depth that CD Projekt went with character backstory, showing a truly flawed and troubled man who has lost his family because of reasons unknown. Many characters you meet in The Witcher 3 are like this. On the surface they present themselves as stoic or strong, but Geralt always seems to uncover interesting and sometimes soul-crushing backstories. Geralt's friends who are introduced in the books and previous iterations of the games are expertly made, and they feel like real people and real representations of the source material. Characters like Dandelion, Yennefer, Triss, and Vesemir feel like a strong network of characters who always have Geralt's back at all times. The relationships between each other are portrayed expertly, ranging from a complex love triangle to good pals and to even tension. Geralt as a character is gruff and badass, channeling Clint Eastwood in a sense. He is written very well, as he gives many different dialogue options to shape how you want your Geralt of Rivia to act. You can be helpful and caring, to indifferent, or even downright brutal. The complexity and motivation make the characters in Witcher 3 a very strong aspect of this encompassing game. It's one of the biggest reasons why I played this game over 3 times. The characters are just so good and so fun to watch, and they're just amazing. The story of Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, follows Geralt as he looks for Ciri in 3 of the 4 major areas of the player map, which is overwhelmingly big. The main quest flows very nicely, taking you across these lands, while semi-guiding you to very interesting side quests that almost feel like main quests in the game.
You were to come alone, elf. Who's this?
A concerned friend.
Fine. Here's how we see things. The boss at Loggerheads with Cleaver, there's got to be a payoff. We've got an offer, and it's non-negotiable.
Surprise us.
A steady supply of iron in exchange for 50% of your profits.
Give you 25.
Who are you to dictate anything to the king of beggars? 35's as low as we'll go.
25's our limit. We'll throw in a discount at the shop.
You're clearly daft, tramp. No deal. Come on, boys.
Fine. No deal.
Geralt, what are you... Wait. All right. Certainly know how to negotiate, concerned friend. 25 it is, and a discount.
Agreed.
Pleasure doing business with you.
Why have you come? Why spill this blood? Are you here to grant me death? Or is my freedom your wish?
In areas like Velen's no man's land, you will see true despair as life for these people in the area is not a good one. The area is poisoned by war and is a festering breeding ground for necrophages alike. Little things like crying peasants, depressed villagers, and true death in the area give a very dark atmosphere that is hard to watch. Velen is evil, where peasants are controlled by a dark force that they will bend their knees to at any moment. This shadow casted over Velen and No Man's Land is the perfect backdrop where armies meet, battle, and die. Novigrad is an absolutely massive city that is bustling and alive. It's probably the biggest city I've ever been to in any game, with elevation and districts readily present. It's so overwhelming when you enter the city, almost like if you walked into any downtown metropolis, with NPCs rushing around going about on their business. Like any city, Novigrad has slums, palaces, and rich people. With a dock area, slums, religious centers, casinos, and much more, Novigrad, which is controlled by the Kingdom of Redania, is called the Free City, and is the target of the Nilfgaardian Empire, Redania's foes from the south. The Skellig Isles is home to a hardy folk of warriors and sailors. The region is thick with forests, tall white-capped mountains, and dark blue waters. Power in Skellige is in the hands of the Jarls, who all control portions of the islands. Their customs and ways provide such a different feel than the continent, and is such a fresh breath of air. To contrast Velen, there is Toussaint, which is a DLC area. Toussaint is the land of wine, where people paint in the meadows, have wonderful tournaments, and bask in a French-like region. Everyone is happy in Toussaint. No one's really in pain or suffering. Although Toussaint is beautiful at the moment, there are dark matters afoot, where many murders of high-class people are occurring that Geralt will have to investigate after the main story is done. In all these regions you can find many, and I mean many, question marks which tell the player of something of interest. One question mark could lead to a long side quest chain, a contract to slay a beast, or a person in need. These regions include a lot of enemies as well, that are very unique in their own sense, from bears and wolves to wraiths and drachnids, and much else living and dead. The overall variety of monsters is immense. Combat is fun and fluid, although it can be somewhat repetitive. Certain enemies are countered by certain signs and strategies. For instance, enemies like drowners and fiends take heavy igni damage, while ghouls are best combated by Axii, and packs of enemies by a shield sign named Quen. These signs can be jacked up by putting skill points into them. These skill points gained every level up will add new effects to these signs, making them way more powerful. With the reintroduction of mutations in Blood and Wine, you will be absolutely devastating enemies with signs. Enemies will dodge, lunge, jump, pounce, and fly, so you have to find each individual monster's weaknesses and exploit them. Once you find the pattern of attack of a creature or a human, the combat gets even easy on Death March difficulty. Don't get me wrong though, this game is much more rewarding playing on Death March, the highest combat difficulty. It may feel daunting and hard when you start, but the lower enemies do get easier to dispel as you level up, while boss fights get way more epic. It also forces you to get better prepared for big battles by producing potions to give you stats increases, making different bombs, and being diligent with weapons, oils, and armors. A quick dodge or rolls are a great way to dodge enemies. Don't worry, it sounds kind of complicated to do all this for Death March ability on your first run, but it is very simple once you start playing the game. The big bad monsters really make this game, as you use Geralt's expert Witcher skills to become the best detective in the land, as you unravel the mystery of every contract or mission that you receive, usually ending in a big fight with a strong foe. These monsters are powerful and hard to beat, and they have very good variety of attacks and fighting styles to keep you on your toes. The sword animations are beautiful as well, as Geralt almost looks like a dancer out there when combat is initiated. But like I said, my biggest gripe about the combat is that once you do figure out the enemy patterns, the combat becomes repetitive and easy. Luckily, Blood and Wine expansion that is available after you beat the main game adds many weird and hard to beat creatures that require different strategies than before to dispel. Witcher 3 can suffer from the fact that the game is split into acts, with the first act taking around 40 to 50 hours to complete, the second around 20, and the third around 15. Now, the second act can be longer, making the first act shorter, and by what I'm saying is, you can skip some missions and do them in Act 2, but it's not clear to you when you start, so you end up really doing the bulk of the side quests that you find in Velen and Skellige early on, because you just don't realize it, because it doesn't actually go on the screen and say Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. It's just something I found that all my friends and myself when playing it ended up having a really long first act that was around 40 to 50 hours, because we just did all the side quests before we moved on with that main quest that moves you into Act 2. When this happens, it kind of makes it disproportionate the amount of time each act takes, so it feels a bit rushed at the end. If you play the game like I did and my friends did, and did all the side quests in the first act, the game can kind of get fatigued, and I actually had some friends stop before they even got to Act 2 because they were just so tired of playing. To talk more about the expansions, the first DLC had an excellent story, and it adds more regions to the northern part of Novigrad. The story I would rate one of the best arcs in the game. The first DLC, Hearts of Stone, has some very interesting quests, including a bank heist and more. It also has very complex characters in it that I don't want to spoil. It takes around 15 to 20 hours to complete, and it is just so nice. So I've touched on the background of Blood and Wine before because it takes place in Tucson, but the region is in a stark contrast to Velen. It's one of the most beautiful game worlds I've ever seen in any game, and you'll find yourself just wanting to take screenshots. Blood and Wine took me about 50 hours to complete everything, as it adds a whole new region to the game. The whole gist of the story is a string of murders is being committed against knights in the region. It really wraps the game up well and makes you feel completed with the character of Geralt of Rivia after so much time invested in his tale. The crafting system in The Witcher 3 is a little ridiculous, as the Witcher gear sets require so much gold and resources to build, especially the Mastercraft ones. Basically, you should be collecting everything you can get your hands on to make sure you have the components, and you don't have to buy them later on, basically. Another issue is that the merchants usually do not have enough gold to buy all the relic items that you collect along your way. The devs did add a chest to store your items, which is awesome, but when you start off your adventure, like every RPG, your inventory will be full. Glitches during quests are also still an issue at this time, but CD Projekt Red has worked very hard at fixing them as soon as possible, with many patches throughout its life cycle. Another issue that the devs worked really hard on to fix is Roach, Geralt's horse. Before, it had the tendency to get caught up on bridges and tight paths, but after the patches, I noticed that happened a lot less. Roach isn't perfect, but it is a lot better. The races that you do with Roach are pretty much a waste of time unless you want the gold or the saddles or whatever you get for winning the races, because they're basically loaded for you to win every time, which isn't that fun. The last piece of negativity that I can basically say about this game are the weapon caches in the Skellig Isles. They are insanely long and boring process of shooting harpies with your crossbows, diving down to grab the chest to get some piece of relic armor or weaponry that you have to sell to merchants who don't have enough gold to buy them. Clearing all the question marks in Skellige is brutal and something that I stopped doing after a while and definitely did not do in my other playthroughs of this game. Oh man, now I'm on the topic of Gwent. Gwent is amazing. It's probably one of the best card games I've ever played inside of a game. It's very simple, and after a couple times playing it, I can suggest that every person who is playing The Witcher 3 for the first time to not skip over it. It's just so great to collect your cards around the whole regions, to fight merchants, to fight blacksmiths, to find the people who have the very rare cards. It's just so much fun, and it adds this extra element to the game of collecting. Like, who doesn't like collecting Pokemon cards or all that kind of stuff? Like Yu-Gi-Oh cards, like, it's just a fun thing to do. And in addition to that, the devs actually added a book in-game that you can buy to track if you're missing any cards, so it's even easier to collect them all. In The Witcher 3, The Wild Hunt, your choices affect the game world immensely. Many small things leading to the ending will affect over 36 end world states that you can receive. It's truly incredible how this system was implemented, actually giving you a running bar, making you make these live decisions through your dialogue options, and living with the consequences. It's so hard to explain because it's so complex, but let's say decisions I made early on in the first act, in the second act, and the third act came back to change the game forever. For instance, hypothetically, say you don't help a town with a problem. When you return in Act 2, there might not be any town remaining. Little things like that are just like so amazing. There is only 3 big final endings that you can receive. The other 30 so endings are to do with different characters you meet along the way, what you did for them, how it influenced their path. So it really makes your ending of the game tailored to what you decided, and it just makes the game world so much yours when you're done with it, because it's just affected by what you did and the decisions you made. So I would say the pros of this game are the strong story, the graphics, the dialogue was amazing, there's lots of monster variety, the bosses are very strong and very fun to play, it's very atmospheric, there are many decisions that you can make to tailor your story, the expansions are wonderful, and just the atmosphere of the regions is just great. Some of the cons I could come up with are the pacing of the game could be a little off, horse gameplay is not very good, the sea caches are kind of annoying, and the inventory and crafting system can be burdensome. Very small caveats, but like way more pros and bigger pros than cons with this game. So overall, I think I would call Witcher 3 my favorite game of all time. There are so many accumulating factors that make this game a masterpiece in my opinion. The storytelling, voice acting, questing system, combat, the player world are just absolutely amazing. Witcher 3, like I said, has very few caveats, and I would recommend you buy the complete edition of this game when it releases. I would recommend you get that when it comes out. It's rumored to be coming out. I will actually leave a link on the screen of an article saying that it is coming true, or if it's already been announced, I will update that link and provide it here on the screen and down below. And I'll even provide a Steam link, whatever, right? Like, I want you to get this game. It is just so good. So if you made it this far and you liked the review, I really appreciate it. Like, it would be great if you could leave a like, a comment, and subscribe. But yeah, I'll see you guys later.